Obviously, it is the spooky season. It's October. It is Halloween time. Halloween is in the air. Everyone's favorite holiday. Andrew, you're a big fan of Halloween, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Christmas is your favorite. I think we're in agreement there. Christmas number one, but Halloween is cool. I like the decorating. I like the colors. I mean, I don't get much of the fall weather down here in Houston, but the vibes are there. Question for you
Oh yeah.
though: as an adult, how many years do you typically wear a costume? Do you dress up?
Not much anymore. I wear my Ghostbuster suit sometimes when we like hand out candy, just
Okay.
because I have it. It's I don't know. It's like it's just an easy thing to do because I have it, and
Do
it's
you get a
really
lot of trick or
not
treaters?
decent amount. We're in a pretty good neighborhood for it, so we usually get a good amount. Usually, sometimes it depends on the weather. We had one year where like on Halloween it was like oddly cold. It was like 30 degrees on Halloween and
Oh
like
yeah.
it snowed. And so like I think we literally had like six trick-or-treaters. Like and I was like, you're getting the big candy, kid, because you braved the storm and came out here. It reminds me there's this episode of like Venture Brothers where the guy's like, we got trick-or-treaters. He's like, look, if those kids get past the 7 layers of security, the laser grid, the armed guards, the robot drones, and get all the way to the front door, they're getting the big candy. Like that's
They
kind of how
earned
it
it.
feels here sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so you have like a backup, you have a go-to just in case, but you're not like
Yeah.
looking to build a new costume every year. Yeah, I mean,
We
I was
we
really
talk about it
into it.
sometimes, but have never gotten there.
Yeah, I was pretty into
Maybe if we
it
had a party, but yeah. Anyway, go on.
in like my early 20s and stuff. I think I've talked on here about I put together a really cool Joker costume I was proud of. But
Yeah, I
you
know.
get
It's how I met you. Um,
was that the night we met? Did we ever establish that?
I'm
Was that day
pretty sure
one?
it is. I'm pretty sure it is because I think that's pre Money in the Bank.
So the first time you saw me, I had a white makeup and a long nose and a big chin. You're like, this
I
guy's
think
cool.
so. I think so.
This seems like a cool Joker here. And you're dressed as a Ghostbuster, so that's
Using the
of
exact same
course we
suit I
have this
still have now.
podcast. like it was
Why
fated.
wouldn't we?
Uh so yeah, but anyway, so I put that costume together and like, 8 friends saw it, which is cool. I guess, but like I don't know, like I guess I could dress up to pass out candy, a few kids. I don't know. I guess I imagined that like I would be going to like places that have costume contests, but I guess that means like going to like a nightclub, which I don't do. It's like I don't know. I ran out of reasons to like have a costume and got the kiddos now, so sometimes I'll dress up just kind of participate with them. Like this year, I think I mentioned already, I'm going to be Luigi because my son is going to be Mario. But I mean, that's just a spirit of Halloween costume in a bag
This would have been the
situation.
perfect time for me to do my Waluigi costume. Like it would have been.
It's not too late, Andrew. Halloween's not here yet. I mean, I don't know what we'll do with that. We had
We
this
can't do
little
anything with that.
Zoom podcast and take a screenshot of us recording in our costumes.
Wah.
But yeah, that would be good. You just like take candy from kids when they come up trick or treating.
Yep.
As you can see, the listeners can't. I know we had our very popular segment on men's facial hair grooming last week, but I now have just the mustache. I went to a friend's house for a costume party yesterday. I wore my Luigi costume, so shaved the chin. This is not a usual look for me, but I'll be rocking this for the rest of this month to be in my Luigi mode.
Choice.
Okay, so Ghostbuster, year after year. Fair enough, Andrew. Let's bring in that theme song. Talk about this movie.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by my physical manifestation of a co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Hello.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Sci-Fi Horror Month, and this week we are talking the 1998 film Sphere. That's a fun word to say, Sphere. Andrew, what is your history with the movie Sphere?
My history with the movie Sphere is not a lot. I would say largely non-existent. I have the book Sphere on my shelf.
I noticed you
behind.
said you have the book Spheres. I mean, you have not
Yes,
read
I
the book
do.
Sphere?
Yes, I have read the book Sphere.
Oh, okay.
How else would I have phrased that to?
I haven't seen the movie, but I've read the book.
I don't know. I don't know why I'd say that. Anyway,
Was it a unreasonable assumption on my part that you would own a book that you have not read?
look, you don't need to call me out so loudly. I don't appreciate it.
Okay, hang on. Okay. I have also read the book. I have not read a ton of books in my life. I used to read a lot more. I had a Michael Crichton phase sometime in high school. I've read Sphere
that how you
specifically
say that?
because Michael Crichton.
I'm joking. Of course. Yes, that's how you say it.
Okay. Honestly, I don't know. You could have told me it was Crichton, and I would have. I don't know if I've ever heard it said out loud before. I've read the book though. When did you read the book?
Probably about 10 years ago.
Okay. Just fan of his.
Yeah,
work.
I'd never really read a lot of it because I always kind of gravitate towards mysteries. Obviously, like murder mysteries, that's kind of my jam. Most of the books behind me are like some form of murder mystery or mystery of some kind. And I've always gravitated more towards that, but I've always been a big fan of Jurassic Park. And obviously heard people talk about how great that book was. But how it was different in a lot of subtle ways. Not even subtle in some cases, sometimes much more overt.
Yeah.
Hammond is probably the biggest difference between the movie and the book.
I was
because
gonna bring this because I said, I had a Crichton phase. I read several. I think it was one called Prey about like nanobots and Jurassic Park. I picked up multiple times, but could never finish it. I could never get into it, and I think it's maybe because of how different it is. And like you were saying, not just like who lives, who dies, this or that, but like entire characterizations of the characters.
Hammond is basically a villain in the book. Like, Hammond is not some old grandpa that's like, gee golly, can't believe my dinosaur resurrection park turned out to be a mistake. In the book, he's much more sinister. And, it's... But anyway, so I just started going down the trail. Like, I have, I would look behind me, but I think the entire shelf, all of his stuff is covered by these 3 stacks of books in front of it, so I can't actually see them. But I know I have Sphere. I know I have Andromeda Strain. I know I have Jurassic Park. I think I have The Lost World, even though that one's kind of a, people say it's obviously inferior to Jurassic Park. I have The Great Train Robbery, which he turned into a movie. And I think I have A Case of Need, which is like a weird medical drama he did even before that. So I like Michael Crichton a lot. And I'm actually kind of sad that he's kind of shifted into that like Tom Clancy adjacent era where they're just slapping his names on books other people are writing. I really am just kind of bummed out by that. Because,
oh, really? Now, how does that work? Does like well, first off, is Michael Crichton still with us?
No, Michael Crichton has been dead for a long time.
Okay, so I thought so, but like, that was my question. How's that work? Does his estate sign off on like using his name in that way?
Yeah, essentially. It's one of those things where like the estate basically like either approves of it or in some cases even commissions it. Like sometimes it is like the estate that seeks it out. And that one has always kind of bugged me. It's I don't know. It's one of those things that like I guess I get it. In that, like Agatha Christie, that happened with, like, for Agatha Christie died in the 70s or even before that. And then, like, 40 years later, they were like, new Poirot and Miss Marple books will be published. And I'm like, why? Like, why now, too? Like, why do this now? But it was the estate in those cases that sought those out to be like, we want to put out new books. And,
which is fine, like, keep the characters alive. But you're saying when they publish those books, they're advertised as written by Agatha
their name
Christie?
is on it. They're not written. They're not, it's always got Agatha Christie's name on it, or it's got Michael Crichton's name on it. And then it'll say, like, written by, like, a good example would be, Andromeda Strain. Andromeda Strain is someone that got, like, they published a book that was called The Andromeda Evolution. And it said Michael Crichton in big letters at the top, The Andromeda Evolution. And then at the bottom, in much smaller font, it said a novel by Daniel H. Wilson.
Okay.
That stuff bugs me. Because Tom Clancy's the same way. Like, it'll be like Tom Clancy's, whatever weird version of events you want to do, Command Lockdown, written by Grant Blackwood. And it's just like, this ain't right. Like, and I know they know what they're doing. Like, they want you to see Michael Crichton, and they're like, oh man, I've never seen this. And then,
is that like the ultimate, like every novelist's dream is to one day your name is elevated to a genre unto itself to be sold at airport bookstores across the world?
Yeah, basically. Like James Patterson even finished a Michael Crichton book. I was annoyed by that. It was like I've always been kind of hesitant in general with the notion of finding like a partial manuscript and having somebody finish it, because like they didn't get to do that, or in the case of some authors, like they purposely didn't publish this. Like they didn't want this out there because they didn't like it, or they didn't want to finish it. Like all of
Prince's music, I know, slightly different, but same concept.
Yeah,
there.
like, he had stuff in a vault. Maybe he decided what would be released when. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me. But, like, there's a point where it's like you're just throwing it out there to make more money. And I guess, like, I guess I can't fault you. But at the same time, it's kind of like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo stuff. Like, Stieg Larsson was going to write 12 Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books. He finished 3 before he died. But the woman he was in a relationship with wasn't technically married to him, so she has all of his stuff, but doesn't own his estate in any way. So she can't actually do anything with the stuff that she has because she doesn't technically own the rights to it. So his family have just gotten other authors to make up new stories to continue things. And it's just like, it's just a weird thing because you're like, obviously in the case like that, especially like, well, you're not even following like what he intended to do. Like, you're not even going to, like, finish it in that way. Like, you're not even planning to use the outlines or whatever that he had. You're just telling people come up with something new that feels right. And that's almost always a recipe for a book that, at best, feels like a cover band. Like, it's never going to feel like the same thing. And Michael Crichton kind of sliding into that era where we're just having more people write books that have his name at the top that are just written by somebody else. It bums me out.
Well, I saw this movie before I read the book. The movie is the reason I read that book, and probably the reason I read all the stuff of his that I did. I think it was my entry point to Michael Crichton's work. I've always loved this movie. I saw it as a kiddo, probably on TV or rental, but multiple times. It always stuck with me. Some of these images and concepts are just burned into my brain. I've revisited it a few times over the years, but watching it again this week is probably the first time I've watched it in at least 10 years. It's been a minute. And part of me, we're putting this month together. I was like, well, I know that movie didn't make a lot. And I look at the reception and the box office. I'm like, man, did I just get this wrong? It's going to make me sad to revisit this now. Spoiler alert, I still love this movie and I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's great. But I love the movie. I love the book as well. We'll talk more about both as we go through this episode, but let's set the stage a little bit here for when this movie was released. It comes out February 13th, 1998. Already we have a release date that's not showing a lot of confidence. It's not during thriller season. It's not during award season. It's not during summer blockbuster season. It's a little bit of a dumping ground, even though it stars big names and was made on a budget of $80 million, which is pretty sizable for the late 90s. At the box office, it only manages to bring in $73.4 million, failing to hit that production budget. Obviously, a flop and disappointment to the studio. Critically, it is really not well received. It holds a 13% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, that's only based on 55 reviews, which I think for the late 90s is a little low, but, any reviews from a pre-Rotten Tomatoes era are more limited in scope, but 55 is a decent enough chunk that I'm shocked it's only 13%. We've said it many times on this podcast. Below 20%, you're in trouble. That's kind of hard to do. I mean, there's no way around it. This movie was panned by critics. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is not much better. 38% audience score. People are not connecting with the movie the same way that I did, apparently. Well, I don't know. I'll have more to say about that here in a moment, Andrew. But what do you think about these numbers here?
It's interesting. I'm looking at this box office, and it's not good. The reviews surprised me because this feels again like that kind of thing in the late 90s that your parents would go watch at the theater and you'd stay at home. But it's like Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, Samuel L. Jackson is like, this is post Pulp Fiction, so like he's a pretty big star at this point. And
it's funny, the last time he was in a Crichton movie, he was like deep supporting cast, barely in it. And then Pulp Fiction happens, and now he's a lead of a Crichton movie.
Now he's a lead. Nice work if you can get it. So like, and obviously like Dustin Hoffman at this point is like at the peak of his powers too. Like this is movie star Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone. This is obviously post Basic Instinct and stuff like that. So like everybody here is a pretty big name. But it is very, very odd to me that it is so panned. And the director is not a lightweight. We'll talk about him a little bit more in a bit, and even the writing crew is not bad. But this box office is very, very interesting to me because I'm looking at the domestic, and it makes 73.4 million worldwide. It only makes 37 million domestically, so almost half. It's pretty split. Now it comes out, like you said, February 13th, which is like what a great movie to take, your spouse or your partner to see on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Let's watch a movie about a weird golden sphere and a spaceship from the future underwater. What? I do like how Box Office Mojo points out that the Nagano Olympics are going on at the same time this is happening.
Does that affect the box office?
I guess they thought it would. So February 13th to 15th, 1998, when this movie comes out, it ranks third opening weekend. It is behind also new release The Wedding Singer at number 2, making 18 million to Sphere's 14.4. Number 1 that weekend is Titanic in its 9th week of release, making $28 million.
Incredible.
The staying power of Titanic is absolutely insane to me, and I really don't I still don't entirely understand how that happened, but it held number 1 for an unbelievable amount of weekend. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17 weeks at number 1. And it was finally defeated by Lost in Space.
What? Dude, that's got to be that movie's biggest claim to fame.
It is.
The movie that dethroned
100%. Titanic. It is unbelievable. Titanic, yeah. The first weekend I can see here where it comes number 2 is April 3rd to 5th, 1998, and it is supplanted by Lost in Space. This one actually says it was its 16th week, but
does it reclaim the number 1 spot after that? Because Lost in Space was out of theaters in 3 weeks.
So it goes number 2 that weekend. Then Easter weekend, it goes back to number 1.
Yeah.
City of Angels comes out and takes number 1 April 10th to 12th. But when you include the whole weekend, it looks like it took it back. And then it stays in the top 10 for like another several weeks. But once the summer 98 blockbuster season starts, it mostly gets pushed out. But it stays in theaters pretty much until almost a full year. Like,
Hey, look,
10 months.
hot take. Titanic's a good movie.
It's not bad.
Not bad. It's not
So anyway,
bad.
Sphere, however, comes in at number 3 its opening weekend. It is followed at number 4 by As Good as It Gets in its 8th week of release, making $6 million. By the second weekend, it stays at number 3 for it's literally the exact same top 3 the next weekend. It's Titanic at 1 with The Wedding Singer and Sphere at number 3. Good Will Hunting reappears despite not doing anything.
That's
That
a
must have gotten
great.
some Oscar buzz. Must have.
It's probably got nominated, so I got another limited release. But that's a great weekend. I mean, you've got a pretty good comedy there. You've got a sci-fi movie with big stars. You've got an epic romance. Like, the variety available to you that weekend is incredible, Andrew.
In its third weekend, it drops to 6th, still behind Titanic, Wedding Singer, Good Will Hunting, and As Good as It Gets. Also further pushed down by new release Dark City. And then in its fourth week of release, it moves to number 14. Behind new releases, Titanic still at number 1, and then new releases U.S. Marshals, The Big Lebowski, Hush, Twilight, and a couple of others push it even further down. And then it's basically gone after that.
Hang on, did you say Twilight?
In theaters. Not that Twilight.
I don't know of a 1998 Twilight, but I want to make sure it's clear it's not the same sparkly vampire movie.
It's Paul Newman, Susan Sarandon, and Gene Hackman in an American neo-noir thriller. How have I not watched this?
Great double feature with Dead Again, Andrew.
No kidding. Like that's why I love looking at these box office numbers. I'm just like, what was number 1 that weekend? Are you kidding me? I've never even heard of this. But yeah, it's even further interesting to me to contrast it. You know, Titanic was in theaters from like December all the way to the following September. It survives in theaters the entire summer. After it comes, like 6 months after it comes out, Sphere is gone in like a month. And this is in 98. Like nowadays, movies will leave in a month because that's just the nature of the business now. But like in 98, to leave theaters after a month, that meant there was nobody coming. Like it meant you were gone. So it's very unfortunate.
Twilight not on sale right now on Vudu. Regular price is $9.99. It is available HD, 61% critic score. I have added it to my wish list, so maybe we'll get around.
Is it a movie? Is it a Movies Anywhere? We wonder. It is not, unfortunately.
Back to Sphere, Andrew. This movie has 2 writing credits. One, Stephen Hauser and Paul Atanasio. Now, Paul, not a slouch, as you would say.
No.
Before this, responsible for the screenplays for Quiz Show and Donnie Brasco, both fantastic movies. Quiz Show, something you introduced me to a couple of years ago. Loved it. Donnie Brasco, I've always been a big fan. And I should say both of those are adapted screenplays, as well as Sphere. And he would go on to adapt The Sum of All Fears and The Good German. So the guy has a specialty, adapting other works, adapting novels to the big screen. And he's pretty good at it. 2 of those movies nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. The Quiz Show win? Did he get? I don't know if he just got nominations or a win, but the guy has a lane. And beyond just movies, he is also the creator behind Homicide: Life on the Streets, which is a very successful, I want to say, precursor to Law and Order. I know there's some kind of crossover. Richard Belzer, his character of Detective Munch, starts off on Homicide before moving to NYPD. Did I say NYPD? I meant Law and Order. Before moving on to Law and Order SVU. So I don't know if it's alongside Law and Order, before, or slightly after, but it's in that vein, and a very successful show. He's our main guy to talk about here, because the other credited writer, Stephen Hauser, this is his only writing credit I could find. Most of his work, in fact, all his other work I saw on IMDb was an assistant to Barry Levinson, who's our director that we'll talk about. So he's in that creative circle, but it looks like he gets called up to at least do some kind of work on this script here, enough to get that writing credit.
Yeah, just doing some punch-ups probably on the script at a certain point. For Steven, yeah, it's his only credited writing credit. Paul Adanasio, like I said, he's, there's uncredited rewrite section here of Speed, Air Force One, Armageddon, Patch Adams, The Fighter. Like, by no means a slouch. It's a pretty good career. Can't really be too upset at that. And then even still creating television shows out there. And like you said, Quiz Show is really good. Folks, if you've not seen Quiz Show, it is very, very good. Written by Paul Adanasio, directed by Robert Redford, starring John Turturro, Ralph Fiennes, Rob Morrow, a couple of others. Robert Redford's not in it anywhere, right?
Not that I forgot he directed it until you just mentioned it, but yeah, I don't remember seeing him in it.
Hank Azaria's in there, Christopher McDonald. Like, it's really, really good. And I don't remember. There was something you said you really, really liked. I think maybe Good Night and Good Luck. And I think you had mentioned really, really enjoying that. And I was like, Quiz Show's probably like right up your alley.
Yeah. I don't remember that conversation, but that makes a lot of sense because I'll do the same recommendation to someone that likes Good Night and Good Luck.
There was some conversation we brought. I think that's what the premise was, is you had talked about, because I was like, I had just seen Quiz Show. I just rewatched it recently, and I was like, man, I bet this is right up your alley. Martin Scorsese's in that movie as somebody. Like, he had acts in that movie. It's wild.
If you like a bunch of middle-aged men in a newsroom or in an office talking to each other, but somehow it's thrilling, I recommend both of those movies.
Also would throw in All the President's Men for more Robert Redford action. Just newspaper the movie. But anyway, yeah, Quiz Show, very, very good. But yeah, interesting group there. We also do have, it says adaptation by Kurt Wimmer. And I don't really know what that means. It says, so I don't know if that means that like he like, I don't understand how he factors into this. I don't actually know, because adaptation.
I've never seen that credit before. Yeah,
like that would imply to me that like he adapted the book, but that would mean he was the screenwriter. But then also, did he write the adaptation of the movie back into a book? Because that doesn't make any sense either. There's already a book. Like, I don't understand.
That guy would go on to write and direct Equilibrium, which is a fun movie from 2002. I'm a fan of, and maybe we'll get to one day on this podcast. But
I don't know, but anyway, yeah, Kurt Wimmer, like I said, and writer on such thing. I mean, he's a writer on a lot of remakes. I see Total Recall, Point Break, Children of the Corn, which he also directs. Writer on Expendables 4. Yeah, very interesting career here, but yeah, I don't really get what that means when it says adaptation, but maybe he took the first pass at the script. Does it say anything? I don't know. It doesn't really say anything, but I'm guessing he maybe took a first pass at it and then other people punched it up. I have no idea. I've just never seen that credit before, and I thought it was really, really weird. And then obviously the movie is based on the book by Michael Crichton, and we've already, run him into the ground. So onward.
Our director here is Barry Levinson. Now, he's already very well established and has had plenty of success. I mean, his second movie to direct is The Natural, the Robert Redford classic baseball movie. He's also already done Good Morning Vietnam, Rain Man, which won, let me check here, all the awards. He did the movie Sleepers. Andrew, have you seen Sleepers from the 90s?
Sleepers? Which one?
Click on that and look at that cast.
Kevin Bacon, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, Jason Patrick, Brad Pitt. One of those names is not like the others.
Billy Crudup is in there somewhere, which obviously was in '96. No one knew who he was, but I mean, it is
Driver. Jesus. Well, I'm adding that one to the list too.
it's a great drama. I mean, it got some pretty dark material. Fair warning, but it's a great movie to check out.
Sleepers is on sale now somewhere for $4. Why? Um, I've
good
never
price,
seen a
Andrew.
movie digitally on sale for $4. There's a sale going on or something? There is. It's on Fandango at home. It is on sale for $4. I have no idea why, but I will be buying that. So no worries, folks. Yeah. I'm not familiar with Sleepers. And then Wag the Dog he actually makes in between when he starts making Sphere and when he finishes making Sphere. He literally like Sphere's production shut down for a little bit, so he's like, all right, I'm just gonna go make Wag the Dog in the meantime and get nominated for like all the awards again. I don't know if you're familiar with Wag the Dog.
I'm familiar. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I remember.
It's basically about a spin doctor, political satire film about covering up a scandal with, a relatively serious Middle Eastern conflict, and then the Monica Lewinsky scandal happened like a month later. There's almost no way you could time it better. But yeah, so he goes and makes that just like, oh, production on this is shut down. Oh, let's just go make a Academy Award nominated film. Well, real quick.
Our favorite movie to bring up that we'll never cover, What Lies Beneath, was made in the break between Castaway when they shut down, so Tom Hanks could gain all that weight. Robert Zemeckis just went and made What Lies Beneath.
Just went and made What Lies Beneath. Top 10 highest grossing film for 2000, folks. We should just do a bonus episode on What Lies Beneath just to get it out of the way because we won't stop mentioning it.
Barry Levinson, one of those interesting directors though, because he doesn't have the household recognition of maybe what you'd expect from some of the caliber of movies I've listed off, and hashtag PP. He seems to be one of those directors that had it and then lost it and never got it back. Now, I love Sphere, but we talked already about its reception, and he doesn't seem to ever really recover in a meaningful critical sense. I mean, he directed the movie Envy in 2004, one of the worst comedies I've ever seen, despite having Ben Stiller and Jack Black. I mean, it is. I have nothing positive to say about that movie. Man of the Year, the Robin Williams movie. He did direct The Bay, which is a horror movie that I have heard is a found footage movie. I have heard some good stuff about, but for every The Bay in his late stage career, there's 3 or 4 movies that either you've never heard of or is a notorious flop, and pretty much none of them get any kind of critical recognition. So I don't know, but you look at long running directors, and this is usually the case. There's a breaking point, and it's so odd to me because they're obviously they don't lose their talent. I don't know what it is that changes. Their opportunities dry up if they have a flop. I mean, I don't really know, but certainly Steven Spielberg or Christopher Nolan are the exception, and certainly not the norm.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It is interesting because you think about that, just how you can go from doing something so acclaimed to kind of relative obscurity. Something like that for Paul Schrader is also kind of true. Where Paul Schrader had this period of time, and he still makes movies that people insist are underrated, and they're still glad he's out there doing his thing. But yeah, with Barry Levinson, it's interesting because he does, like I said, he's got The Natural, Good Morning Vietnam, Rain Man. And just then all of a sudden he's just it drops, and like I said, you get Envy, you get Man of the Year, you get What Just Happened, which is a weird Robert De Niro comedy, and then even 10 years ago he did a movie with Bill Murray called Rock the Casbah that everybody kind of had high hopes for, and then I think it has a 7% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
It was this movie where it was oh, it's just Bill Murray kind of being a just doing a weird thing, being a rock manager, and it's not good. And then he just did one this year called The Alto Nights, and I remember this getting a decent amount of a little bit of hype, but it was the screenwriter of Goodfellas and Casino and American Gangster and or no, he didn't write American Gangster, but like the screenwriter of Goodfellas and Casino teaming with Barry Levinson to do a crime drama felt like a winner. And it disappeared from the box office, made almost no impact critically, and just kind of disappeared. And so I really don't know what it is, but it happens. And you get people that just never quite, it's lightning in a bottle. I don't know what it is, but it is just, it's unfortunate. And it is, I don't know, maybe the problem with Alto Knights was having Robert De Niro play both the villain. I don't know. Well, he plays two different crime bosses, and he's supposed to be different people, and I just don't know that was the best. Don't know that was the best. Path forward there, but yeah, he's pretty in demand now. Wag the Dog definitely was a big winner there, and so when Sphere comes out, he's still pretty high up, but this is seemingly the beginning of the decline for the most part.
With that, Andrew, I think it's time that we enter the Sphere, Andrew, and talk about this movie, all the positives, everything we like about the film. Are you ready?
Yes.
When a spacecraft is discovered at the bottom of the ocean, a team of specialists are gathered to investigate the wreckage and potentially make contact with extraterrestrial life. Once inside the craft, however, they are shocked to learn it is an American spacecraft from the future that crashed into the ocean 300 years ago. Soon after finding a mysterious gold sphere on board the ship, strange occurrences began happening to the crew on board the underwater home base they established near the ship, including attacks from jellyfish and a giant squid. Now the team of scientists, military personnel, and a psychologist must work together to understand why these things are happening and how it relates to the sphere if they hope to make it back to the surface alive. That's it. There's a sphere at the bottom of the ocean. They find it. Weird stuff starts happening. Why? Why is it happening? Who's doing it? Is it aliens? Mystery abound in this movie. Most of it gets explained or resolved, but it's the pursuit of those answers that I find so fascinating in this movie. A lot to dive into when we get to scenes, Andrew. But first things first, you know what we gotta do. We gotta talk about this cast and what a cast it is. But we're starting with the high point, with the best casting, best performance in the movie, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance, and we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, kick us off here. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Sphere?
It will be Huey Lewis as helicopter pilot.
Is that really Huey Lewis?
Yes, it is.
Of the news fame. Look at that.
Yes, of the news fame. I don't know why he's here. I have no idea. But he is, and
it's a very Justin Michael pick of you, Andrew.
No, I'm not actually going with Huey Lewis in his 45 seconds as a helicopter pilot, in which he does speak, though. Anyway, I will be going with Samuel L. Jackson as Dr. Harry Adams for my Mark Strong here. He is definitely the one that I think is got the most chemistry with the rest of the cast, although I don't know that they all necessarily have chemistry with each other, but I think he interfaces well with everybody pretty well, the best of them all. He sits in a very interesting spot because he is obviously the first one that goes into the sphere, and just ends up having a lot of really interesting interactions coming out of that. The unsettling nature of some of his interactions also is very, very good. There's moments where you're like, oh, something's weird with this guy. And he plays all of that extremely well to the point that you're like believing he's up to something, not necessarily realizing that maybe he doesn't know he's up to something, which is one of the many weird layers to this movie. But he's bringing it when he needs to, and then just in the moments of seriousness when he just doesn't take it serious. Like, he's sitting in like a dark, cafeteria with water leaking all around him, damage and fire residue everywhere, and he's just reading his book like nothing's bothering him, and that stuff just comes off so unsettling. And he does a really good job with all of that. And so, in that regard, I'm going with Samuel L. Jackson as our resident mathematician, Dr. Harry Adams.
Well, Andrew, I'm agreeing with you 100%. Samuel L. Jackson also getting my Mark Strong Award for this movie. I've got to imagine he's picked up the Mark Strong Award before. We've talked about him multiple times. Glass, I would imagine he got a Mark Strong Award there. When else have we had the opportunity to talk about Samuel L. Jackson, Andrew? Deep Blue Sea, would not be surprised if we had the Mark Strong Award there. But of course, there's simply no way for us to go back and check. But I'm pretty confident he is now a Mark Strong Award winner. And yeah, I'm agreeing. I mean, all the things that you're saying, he's got great chemistry. And because he is the first one to go into the sphere, he's the first one that we start to be unsure of. Like, what is he up to? What's wrong with him? Has he been affected? Is he menacing? Is he doing this? And he plays that mystery really well. I really love the scene in particular. He's gone to the sphere. He's like unconscious when he comes out. He wakes up like nothing happened. And he tells Dustin Hoffman's character, he's like off screen. He's like going to bed. He's like, we're all going to die down here, And it's the kind of thing in a horror movie where usually the character will be like, what'd you say? And he'd be like, oh, I said goodnight. And we move on without acknowledging it. But he doubles down. He's like, well, yeah, we're all going to die down here. And he is, I won't go through the whole scene because we haven't got there yet, but he's basically just using deductive reasoning to, his math brain. He's like, well, yeah, it's just a matter of fact. We're all going to die down here. So there's always that layer of like menace and tension, but he doesn't shy away from it. And like you said, it plays the kind of mystery of it all very well. And the character's and Dustin Hoffman in particular goes back and forth between trusting him and, wanting to keep him sedated because he can't be trusted. And with someone like Samuel Jackson, you kind of believe that you would be convinced he wants everyone to be murdered 1 second, but a second later, like, maybe he's an all right guy. Maybe he's not so bad. He plays the layers very well. I mean, this is like peak, as you used to like to say, peak of his powers, Samuel L. Jackson, I think. I like any Samuel L. Jackson performance, but I feel like it would be in the years following this, especially in the 2000s, where he almost develops I don't know how to say this well. I don't mean it negatively at all, but it's almost like he kind of becomes a caricature of Samuel L. Jackson. He kind of hits the beats you expect from Samuel L. Jackson in all of his movies. And I feel like there's just a little bit more to him here than we see in later performances, even though those later performances are also very, very good. But I like this era of Samuel L. Jackson quite a bit. I think he's fantastic here, and for that reason, getting him my Mark Strong Award. Andrew, I'm a little surprised you didn't go with someone else in this cast, because I know how much you love Liev Schreiber. And I'll be honest, going back to watch this movie, I remembered our three leads, so we'll continue talking about it here in a moment, but I kind of forgot Liev Schreiber was in it, or maybe I wasn't even too aware of who he was last time I watched this, to be honest with you. I've gotten to know him much more since we've started this podcast, and we've seen him pop up in movies, and you talk about him, I don't know, like all the time, about how great he is. So just much more familiar with his work, but I was like, oh, wow, Liev Schreiber's in it. He probably dies super early, but he's basically like the fourth lead. I mean, he does die earlier than the other three, but he's in a lot of this movie, mixing it up with all of them. I think the only reason his face isn't on the front, the poster, because he just wasn't as big of a name as the other three. But as far as his role in the movie, he is the fourth specialist. And he's got a kind of friendly rivalry with Samuel L. Jackson, as they are both like once boy geniuses that are both incredibly smart, multiple PhDs, and their back and forth is quite fun, quite entertaining. Liev Schreiber is, he's great. He's always great, and this is no exception. Yeah, I was a little surprised you didn't give him the nod here, Andrew.
It's very good, but Samuel L. Jackson obviously getting, I think, because Liv Schreiber ultimately is the only person who doesn't enter the sphere, basically, in this movie that makes it through the initial stuff. And I guess the Peter Coyote's character doesn't either, but like, as we, sorry to spoil scenes for the 27-year-old movie at this point, but it's a good performance, but just the layers that Samuel L. Jackson gets to play with just give it a little bit of an edge for me. I do love Liv Schreiber, but this is post Scream and Scream 2 and Phantoms, so I have no idea why he's not on the poster. I don't know how you're not a superstar after those three things in a row. And then he actually is also in the movie Twilight in '98, so now I really need to watch it. So I will be watching that soon, folks. But anyway, I do like his performance here. Like you said, this friendly rivalry he has with Samuel L. Jackson, both kind of being, young PhD. The joke is that Samuel L. Jackson got his character got his first PhD at 18, and he got his at 19. And then he's got the bit of a mentor relationship with Dustin Hoffman, obviously. Like, obviously, Dustin Hoffman knew him when he was 17, like, going to college. He says, I've known him since he was 17, and he feels bad about what ultimately happens to him. So, and I think he plays well with everybody too. Like, he plays off of all the characters generally pretty well. And I do like what he's doing here, but Samuel L. Jackson get just a few more layers to work with there that give him the edge for me. But Liv Schreiber is taking his role definitely above what a lesser actor might have.
We've mentioned Dustin Hoffman a number of times already. He is basically the lead of this film. It is an ensemble cast, but if you're going to single out one person, it is going to be Dustin Hoffman as Dr. Norman Goodman, the psychologist who's actually responsible for putting this plan into place. He mentioned a few times working for the Bush administration, and instinctively my brain goes to W, but it would obviously have to be HW Bush administration. But he put together a protocol in case we ever came across extraterrestrial life. And it's almost like he forgot to even put this thing together, but here he is being called into action because his plan is being enacted, and the specialists that he handpicked are all being gathered because we have found a spacecraft. Dustin Hoffman has a career that speaks for himself. He, I do believe, is also a Mark Strong Award winner for Hook, and I made my amendum there, and I guess I'll say it again here. He's one of those guys that has a sexual misconduct allegations section of his Wikipedia. It's something that I'm by no means going to act like I'm an expert. It's not something that's resulted in like criminal charges. Of course, that's not the end all be all for this kind of stuff. But it seems to be that there are some stuff that is unscrupulous in his past. And this is just Wikipedia surface level thing, but they make it a point to say that Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and Liam Neeson have come to his defense. And 2 out of 3 of those guys aren't doing you many favors if they're the ones that are speaking up to come to your defense of your behavior.
To be fair to Chevy Chase, he doesn't have any sexual misconduct allegations against him. It's just everything else.
They're not sexual in nature.
It's just that he's horrible in every other way. No, yeah, the irony of using Bill Murray as like the go-to defender, I'm just like, this is what we're going with? All right. Okay. But yeah, you've said everything that needs to be said about Dustin Hoffman. I don't have anything to add. He is our lead here. It is what it is. Nothing else to say.
Sharon Stone in this movie. Sharon Stone, we've talked about her. Oh, yes, Catwoman. We've had a chance to talk about her before. She's someone that is like, she was a movie star in the early 90s, or the 90s in general, and like will always be a movie star. But I feel like, much like our director, sort of like the hits or opportunities dried up, and it's a real shame because I've always enjoyed her performances anytime she shows up. Even in that Catwoman movie, I think she's giving it her all. We talked about it back in the day. I think she is great here. She is there because she is a is she the anthropologist, Andrew? I get or the microbiologist. What is
She's
her
the
specialty?
microbiologist.
Microbiologist. This is the second week in a row we've had
Marine biologist, actually, I think.
marine biologist. Okay,
Specific.
because it's on Species, it was also the one woman they gathered that was a
What's
biologist.
The biologist, yeah.
It's apparently only short-haired women in the 90s were biologists of any kind. That's her specialty,
Blonde
but
specifically.
they there's also a history with Dustin Hoffman's character. They seem to have a relationship at one point. Did not end well. Turns out it was an affair that Dustin Hoffman was having. Sharon Stone was the mistress, but was not made aware of that. And that tends to upset people, Andrew, and they work to sort of resolve their issues by the end of this movie. There's also another layer here where she has a history of using antidepressants, and that is sort of weaponized against her by some of the other characters, and some interesting layers they've thrown in here. I mean, in particular, it's the captain that really uses that as a weapon against her in some pretty awful scenes. But she is everyone kind of plays their part to make it out of there, but she really has some true hero moments, and there's certainly a good chunk of the final act where she seems to be the only person thinking clearly and getting them sort of out of the scenario that they find themselves in. But it's great. I mean, she's able to play the mistress stuff, the woman scorn stuff, without turning into like a caricature or letting that be the sole thing that defines her character. I mean, there's plenty of other layers to it, and she's believable as the capable, smart scientist that has a right to be there. Whenever they're investigating the ship, she's putting a lot of the pieces together before anybody else. So really enjoyed the performance and the way this character was written.
Yeah, this one gets a good deal of layers to work with as well. Where we know Samuel L. Jackson's character has gone into the sphere. We know that. I would say it's implied that Dustin Hoffman's character goes into the sphere. It's not necessarily as cut and dry. But the same type of thing with his silhouette kind of sliding up the top of the sphere that happens to Samuel L. Jackson happens to him as well pretty early in the film. So it's not exactly a shock that he's been in the sphere. It's just odd that he doesn't remember it, but they know Samuel L. Jackson went into the sphere, but with him, it seems like it's more dubious. So she has that kind of did she, didn't she aspect as well. Like, did she go into the sphere? Didn't she? And that adds a lot to the character. It gives it a lot more kind of leverage, especially as the tensions ramp up in the third act and everybody ends up at each other's throats, because you're like, oh, who can we trust? Who's telling the truth? Who's actually responsible for this? And it turns out, yes. But this character is played really, really well. Sharon Stone does a very good job with it, and I liked it. I like how that all played out with that kind of idea. You get that notion of like the, it's not necessarily an uncommon thing. Almost, the cabin fever type thing, where like when a bunch of people are trapped in an area, they don't even need a giant golden sphere to start turning on each other. And when you add in a giant golden sphere that gives the ability for your imagination to manifest, turns out that relationships deteriorate even quicker. Who would have thought?
And that character of Captain Barnes I mentioned earlier, played by Peter Coyote, a bit of a journeyman actor, has showed up, in a ton of movies and TV, certainly things you've seen or heard of, a bit of that guy character actor, but he does a good job in his role here as the person that's in charge of the habitat. He seems to be the one person who knows the protocols, what's going on, how to keep the place pressurized and things start going wrong, etc., etc. He is the de facto leader, of course, until he gets bisected by an automatic door. But a bit of at first kind of comes across just maybe as like a military hard ass, but like I said, he goes after Sharon Stone's character pretty hard behind her back, and he seems I don't know, dedicated to the protocol to a fault, maybe, not much empathy or humanity there. Whenever they do start communicating with the entity, his way of dealing with it is almost humorous, and how much he doesn't seem to really understand what's going on. But ultimately he gets his, but a good performance.
Yeah, it's definitely, obviously he does not go into the sphere, so as things start to go terribly, terribly wrong, he's doing his very best to keep everything on track, but as everyone else is kind of degenerating around him, he's kind of forced to be kind of the jerk to try to keep everybody in line. And as it's unfolding, you just kind of don't understand, but definitely, like, with the benefit of hindsight, I was like, this was almost like Stu Pickles trying to wrangle the Rugrats at a certain point, where, like, it's basically like at a certain point he was just like, guys, I need you all to listen to me and stop messing around. And like, everybody was just, you are freaking out, man. But it's like I said, ultimately, so he's definitely the straight-laced, like, one of the group who, as things go wrong, he's the one that's pointing out all this stuff. And, like, one of the recurring bits throughout the movie is that the report Dustin Hoffman's character wrote about, like, what we would do if we encountered an unidentified life form is mostly garbage. It's mostly nonsense. And it includes this team, which is all just people he knew. And so as the cracks start showing there, the Captain Barnes, as he's called, he's the Navy captain. He's the one familiar with the facility, so it definitely makes sense. But he's trying desperately to keep everything on track here, but it degenerates more and more until eventually he is bisected by a door, which is a rough way to go.
That's definitely our main players. It's obviously a limited scope because this movie takes place in the deep ocean. Not a lot of people down there. But I do want to shout out Queen Latifah, who's one of the crew members, and not a huge part, but an early role for Queen Latifah. Obviously goes on to have a very successful acting career, and does a good job here. Meets her dramatic end with a sea of jellyfish attack her. Andrew, do you feel like hip hop and rap, there's more of a career path to acting than other genres in music, and why do you think that is?
I'm not qualified to speak on this at all. I don't know. It is, like, obviously, Huey Lewis is in this movie too, yet somehow he only gets 45 seconds. But
that's true.
But
if I had a nickel for every 90s thriller we talked about on this podcast that took place in the middle of the ocean that starred a rapper in a supporting role, I would have 2 nickels.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's definitely, I don't know. Like, obviously very popular musicians. There's, been plenty attempts at, popular singers and, rock musicians trying to transition into acting. Usually doesn't go well. Hence why most of them don't do it. But yeah, I couldn't really begin to unpack that one.
I mean, it happens in all genres, don't get me wrong. We talked about Gavin Rossdale and Constantine. David Bowie had plenty of successful acting credits. I just feel like it's a more maybe successful. Maybe like they transition. People from hip hop genre have much more successful transitions and end up being naturally suited for it. And yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but it is interesting. Andrew, with that, we are going to transition to talk about the scenes of this movie, and we're going to start by talking about the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? wrong three-dimensional shape. When is I lost where I am. Andrew, what's your favorite scene of the movie?
I think it's got to be the giant squid attack for me, just because it's when it really... I won't say nothing bad has happened to this point. Clearly things have. But, like, that's the moment where, like, it goes from creeping death to, like, real death. Like, it's this building sense of fear where, like, our minor characters are kind of being picked off by these weird things. But this sequence is when the main characters start seeing the consequences of what's happening. This has been teased, obviously, all the eggs dropping earlier in a scene where they were just, that was so, I don't know that I've ever been more unsettled by eggs.
Yeah.
But it was, but just like there's a line she says in that moment where she's just like, "What lays this many eggs?" And I was like, "What does lay this many eggs? Good Lord!" But
I'm alarmed by
But-
the size and quantity.
the size, the shape, the fact they're translucent, like everything about this egg and this general situation leaves me deeply unsettled. But it leads to this kind of extended, attack on the habitat essentially, which is revealed to be an attack. So basically, this giant squid that was threatened earlier finally shows up and it's attacking the habitat. This is what ultimately leads to Liv Schreiber and Peter Coyote's characters dying. Liv Schreiber gets pinned to the ground and then set on fire, which is really brutal. And Peter Coyote, like I said, gets bisected by a door. Samuel L. Jackson's character is asleep the whole time, which is definitely... And they've implied that throughout the movie before, that like when bad things are happening, his character's asleep. And so they're definitely drawing a line to Samuel L. Jackson's character being in the sphere and what's happening. They never really hide from that. And this situation is even worse. And like it's made even more unsettling by the fact that like Dustin Hoffman is trying to communicate with what they think is the entity. And it's basically just saying, I'm going to kill you all. Like, I'm going to kill you all. It just says it outright at this point. And it also they keep calling it Jerry because they thought that's what it wanted to be called. And it just now has started saying, stop calling me Jerry. And then eventually, we hack out that this thing is actually called Harry, which is Samuel L. Jackson's character, which is how we're like, oh, he's doing this. But this attack on the habitat, the tension it roused out, and then the fact that there are real consequences. It would have been easy to have a sequence like this where just nobody dies, which just makes the threat seem just non-existent for the most part. But by having there be actual consequences and just watching, essentially you're underwater with no help, and you've got water coming into the only place you're supposed to be safe. That's terrifying. On its own. You throw in a giant squid and a bunch of people getting killed, and it makes it even worse. It's like, but the fact that they were on fire, I was just like, just open a window. Like, you're on fire, just open a window for like a brief second.
Just enough to douse it with water, close the window. Pressure will be fine.
There's a joke in an episode of the IT Crowd where one of the characters is dating this woman and her parents are dead. And he doesn't know why. And she finally says they died in a fire at a water park. And the character gets obsessed, like, by trying to figure out how that could happen. Like, because he's just like, there's no way. Like, it's like, and not only that, they died in a fire at, like, the Sea Lion show. Or maybe it was, like, some sort of dolphin show. Some fish show. And they're all just like, well, you would need a lot of water for a show like that, wouldn't you? And he's like, I think you would need a tremendous amount of water for a show of that nature. So he spends the whole episode trying to figure out how her parents died in a fire at a water park. But in this same moment here, I had this thing that's like, a fire in an underwater habitat. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But but no, all this tension is really, really good. The way Levinson kind of approaches this and shoots it is just very, very effective. The cinematographer here was Adam Greenberg, who also did things like nothing else I've heard of. He shot Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So
I've heard of that.
Knows a little bit about what he's doing. Also shot Snakes on a Plane. But I just want to shout him out because this is shot really, really well. I like how this is put together. The tension it kind of rings out of it, pun intended, is very, very good. And it's where it's like I said, it's the moment the movie shifts. And actually, what surprised me is like after this attack, there's like an hour left of this movie. I was like, what else is going to happen now? Like, what can with it? Just where are we going with this? And it goes places. Don't misunderstand me, but it's just very well done. So props to everyone involved, but this is definitely the scene for me where I was like, oh, this is bad. This is not good.
What I love about this is Sphere is a movie that I would imagine there's a lot of people out there that maybe saw it back and they rented it. It's kind of been wiped from their memory or memory hole. They don't remember it. But if you were to push them, like, oh, remember Sphere, that movie underwater, Samuel L. Jackson? They might be like, oh, yeah, that movie with the giant squid attack. Or there's that giant squid from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Or like this might be like a thing, a hallmark in the movie they remember. And you never see the squid. there's this like super tense squid attack. You never see the giant squid, which one is smart budget-wise for making a movie in 1998, and two, it's just so much more powerful that it is only in your mind and it's only implied. So you see those eggs, which is creepy. There's this like sonar readout. It's like every few seconds you get a beep and see this giant squid shape moving closer to the habitat. There's all these things that imply the giant squid and the power and the size of it, but this movie would not be improved by a big CGI tentacle wrapping around the habitat or seeing a squid eye through the window. Like, I love how powerful it is by just leaving it mostly to your imagination and just seeing like the effects of the giant squid, and especially the fact that it appears and disappears just as quickly. There's just no longer a sign of it. It's all, like I said, just being implied. I just think it's super powerful. It's a highlight of like the power of film, and it's clever, and it's just I love that about this. You know, one of the most significant action scenes involves a giant squid that you never see, but it's still thrilling and thrilling and exciting, and I think that is really cool, Andrew. I mean, yeah, I don't know if we don't need to do spoiler warnings for the movie we are actively talking about, but as you've implied and as we come to learn, the squid is being manifested by Samuel L. Jackson's character. Once you enter the sphere, you come out with this gift, ability, curse, whatever you want to call it, that your thoughts, your fears, your dreams become physically manifested in the world. I remember this being a much larger part of the book. Like anything that just pops into your head physically appears. Here, they make it much more based on fear, and it's usually subconscious, usually dreaming. I should probably go back and read that book. I just remember it being a sort of a larger part there. But yes, because he's been in this fear, he is dreaming about a giant squid because he is reading. We see him reading the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but even that book was manifested because he admitted to the crew that he can never make it past page 87, where they describe the giant squid. And Dustin Hoffman's character eventually picks up a copy of the book. There's many copies of the book throughout the habitat, and the pages are blank after page 87, which I think is just a fun, cool little detail. But that's sort of how they help figure out that these things are being manifested from Harry's mind. Now, by the end of this, our three main characters have all entered the sphere, so we have all kinds of stuff being manifested. It's unclear who's manifesting what, and it's just a blast. But for my favorite scene, I'm going to rewind to before anything gets manifested by our characters. I think my favorite scene is when they first enter the spaceship, because there's just so many what is going on, how is that possible moments that come up where it's really hard to like get ahead of the movie. Which is a position I like being in, and then slowly the kind of dominoes start falling and things come into place. But for a while, you're thinking like, well, how could this even be possible? So going into the ship, we know that it's been there for 300 years. We know that by the amount of coral that has grown on top of it. We, of course, assume it must be an alien spacecraft. It's been there that long. We certainly didn't have the capability 300 years ago. We still don't have the capability. Once on board, I mean, the first weird thing that happens is the door opens by itself. They are let into this spaceship. They see shoe prints already inside the spaceship, as if people have already walked around. They find a dead human. And Justin Hoffman even says, like, what do you mean? Like, it's humanoid. Like, it looks human. And Sharon Stone's character says, no, I mean, this is a human. They find words written in English. Eventually, I want to say a log book. What do you call that, Andrew? Like a log book of events that this spacecraft has experienced. And they click on one that says unknown event, and they see this sort of like 3D representation of this spaceship getting sucked into a black hole, which, you know, kudos to this movie for not explaining a black hole by folding a piece of paper in half and sticking a pencil through it like every other sci-fi movie does. But they do kind of
just wait. We're not done yet.
they do kind of give us like a general explanation of black holes, that it's a collapsed star. The gravity is so strong it pulls in everything, including light and time itself, and so that's how that spacecraft ended up there. So that kind of answers some things, like the spacecraft in the future, but of course they also come across the sphere, which is so cool looking. It is hovering barely off the ground. The surface is rippling and moving, but it's also a perfect sphere. And I love the part where Dustin Hoffman's character, who is a psychologist, says, have you guys noticed it reflects everything in the room except us? And he says, I love this line, I hate to be the one non-scientist that picks this up, guys. Like, all of you should have noticed way before me. But yeah, they themselves are not being reflected in the sphere, almost as if the sphere is deciding what gets reflected. It's just a super cool, weird, ominous, strange detail. And it's things like that like we never really understand, that I really like, because we wouldn't understand. This is an object from deep space, from the future, that can do things beyond our comprehension. These characters, no matter how smart they are not going to understand every single thing about this. And so we, the audience, aren't. Like, we get to enjoy the mystery. Like I said, the movie solves most of the problems or answers most of the questions, but there's still enough mystery that I really enjoy about this movie. Like, is this sphere itself alive? Is it a weapon? Is it made by aliens? We don't ever really know, which I think is super cool. So I'm highlighting this whole initial exploration as my favorite scene because it sets all the mysteries into motion, which leads to the action, leads to the thrilling scenes, it leads to the resolutions. But it gets so many hooks in me that it's the reason I love this movie. I'm compelled by this movie so much, by all the questions that get raised, in particular in this initial exploration scene.
This is a good pick. I think this is definitely it's an important scene for the movie, obviously, because it kicks off everything and it gives you kind of your initial understanding that this is just not what you think it is. This is not an alien spaceship. This is they specifically say American spaceship. I don't know. Obviously, it's in English. I understand that, but like, you know, they specifically.
Well, it's in English and Spanish. I mean, Spanish second, I guess. So, are we the only country that would put English first and Spanish second? Yeah, I don't know how they came across American.
I don't know, whatever. But it's a pre 9/11 movie. That still wants to point out that it's American. But
yeah.
But how do you know how good this is? It's made in America, Jack. But it's you definitely get the weirdness here for the first time. Like, obviously, the notion that this is not what you think it is. Obviously, the sphere is the central hook, but obviously, this is almost a misdirect in a lot of ways, because you're given this notion that, oh, well, this ship is actually from the future, and it has traveled back 300 years ago and crashed into the ocean, and we've just now found it. And it's almost a misdirect, because then they find the sphere, which we do determine is alien. So basically, the application they kind of make is that this ship was specifically designed to find things like this and bring it back. And all that's mostly just posturing, but it ultimately, I guess, is true. But it is a very important scene. It's very, very cool. I like the layout of the ship. And like, I like when they like walk into the ship and it's like metal grates and plumbing and stuff. Like, at no point is that like a tip off to them. They have to find the words in English. That's when they're like, whoa, wait. It's like, the fact that all of this just looks exactly like you would expect it to, and you understand what all of it is, isn't that a clue at all?
Well, I don't know. They know it's been there for 300 years. I mean, I think... You think you'd immediately jump to time travel or man-made just because you see metal grating?
I would have at least red flagged the fact that I'm like, wow, this looks kind of like... This looks very familiar.
Yeah,
I would
designed
say, for an alien
us.
spaceship. Like, yeah, like, this looks a little too... exactly like what our stuff already kind of looks like for me to think it's from somewhere else, unless the idea is that it doesn't matter if, you know, human evolution all reaches the same point. But anyway, I liked this scene a lot. I think this is a really good pick, and then obviously it is the kickoff for the major events of the film. So good call.
Yeah, after they discover this, they find out that this actually isn't an alien spacecraft, so we don't need this team we assembled for making contact with extraterrestrials, because that's not what's happening here. They're going to go to the surface the next morning. Their mission is over. Which, Liev Schreiber's character seems to be the only one that has a problem with that. He's like, guys, this is like the greatest discovery of mankind, and you guys are fine, we're just leaving. But Samuel Jackson's character, Harry, that night, takes it upon himself to go back to the ship and check out that sphere. And we never really know, like, is he acting of his own volition? Is the sphere reaching out to him? Is it calling to him? Why exactly does he do this? We don't really know. Either his own curiosity or an outside influence is one of the mysteries of this movie. But I love this visual, first of all. He walks up to the sphere and he does see his reflection. The sphere is choosing to reflect him, I guess. And then his reflection sort of just floats up the surface of the sphere. And his body goes limp. He goes unconscious. Or I guess he disappears first. So Dustin Hoffman goes after him, and then his body like reappears unconscious on the ground. Is how he finds him. So like the way the movie is showing us what it means to enter the sphere almost like doesn't make sense in a visual way. Like you get reflected, your reflection moves, you disappear, you reappear. Like it's more of that sort of mystery intrigue. We can't even comprehend what this means, this concept of quote unquote entering the sphere. There's also this big mystery about what's inside the sphere. They keep asking Harry what was in there. He refuses to elaborate or tell them. And it's not until like deep in the movie when he finds out the other two people have entered the sphere. It's almost a throwaway line. He tells Sharon Stone, "Oh, you've entered the sphere. Well, then you know that there's nothing inside." And we kind of just move on. And like, that's so wild to me that all these like mysterious things happening, special powers, and this mysterious way of entering the sphere, that their concept of it is that they go inside and see that there is nothing. Like there's nothing in the sphere. But of course, when they come out, they have all these abilities. It's so weird and unnerving in a way that I really, really love. I love this recurring shots that we get from a security footage inside the habitat every time someone dies. So after we lose the first person that I think we find out was crushed by a giant squid, they find their body. I think it's the first death. I think it's before Queen Latifah's jellyfish. I might be flipping him, but we had the first dead body and everyone's sad about it. And there's this black and white shot from a security camera of the small room on the ship with a body bag on a table. And then after our second death, we just have that shot again. Now there's 2 body bags in the room. And then there's the big squid attack, and there's that shot again. Now there's like 5 body bags in the room. But we never see anyone go in and out of the room. We're never in that room in like a normal scene. It's always just that like security cam footage that we just go back to every now and then just to like show us the body count. It's such a cool like visual motif for like the ramping up of the stakes of this movie.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a very, very good choice. And then obviously towards the end of the movie, when the room like busts open and floods out and one of the bodies like comes out, it's all creepy and unsettling because you're like, ew, the dead body room. Yeah, that choice of motif was very, very good. I just like the way this movie handles it. Like it what I think is interesting is the movie could be very claustrophobic, but I wouldn't say that the movie necessarily feels claustrophobic. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because it's usually in kind of confined space movies, you get this sense of claustrophobia. And in the book, one of the characters actually leaves early on because he gets claustrophobic and he doesn't want to stay. He made some comment about how he's never even looked at another guy before leaving. But it's my references are out of control. Everybody knows that. But and I guess part of that's because like the spaceship obviously is massive. There's this massive sense of scale to that. So obviously you're not really dealing with a particularly claustrophobic situation. The only moments where it kind of feels claustrophobic are probably during like stuff like the squid attack, where they're really kind of honing in on the fact that there's nowhere to go and nowhere to save you, really. It's similar to like The Martian in that regard, I guess, because like The Martian, he's in a relatively confined space, but I would never say that movie feels claustrophobic. Like, you never feel like trapped necessarily watching
Yeah.
it. But which is just an interesting approach. Not saying it's a problem by any means, but just a really interesting way to approach that.
I never noticed this until you just pointed it out, but it is interesting. This movie never makes it a point to like emphasize the claustrophobia. Like, it would almost be, like you said, they do it in the book. It'd almost be like an expected screenwriting thing for one of these characters to be like, oh, I'm, real uncomfortable, tight spaces and claustrophobic, and that's a running thing. And they avoid that entirely. They never really play it up. But I've got to say, deep sea diving is terrifying, even though that's never specifically really played up as a fear of these characters specifically. Like, just watching them in these suits deep underwater, like the glass cracking, like, it is all just like, you couldn't pay me to do anything like this. Like, this is probably the movie I learned about the bends from, but it's something that's come up in plenty of like movies and obviously it's a thing in real life, but like, your body like gets used to the pressure so that if you come up too quickly, your lungs can explode. Like, it's just the most terrifying concept in the world.
I can't even begin to tell you. Like, people talk about space being terrifying, and don't get me wrong, space is terrifying, and we are never going to live in space in the way that anybody tells you we are, because it's just not sustainable. It is not sustainable for society to go to Mars. It is not sustainable for society to go to the moon. You would basically have to create and maintain the conditions in order for us to survive all the time. It would require 24/7 facilities operations staff always working to make sure that like everybody stays alive. But underwater is terrifying to me because, one, we don't know what's down there. Like, on a base level, like, we don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean. And the pressures at the bottom of the ocean and the level of, like, the fact that things survive at the bottom of the ocean, like, it, like, who knows? Like, literally, the Kraken could be down there for all we know. Because he just has no reason to come to the surface. Because if you live at the bottom of the ocean, you're completely adapted to those circumstances. So we have, and you're literally talking like billions of years of evolution could lead to the things that live at the bottom of the ocean. Now, don't get me wrong. We've had several extinction events that raised the temperature of the oceans and wiped out a lot of what was down there. Those ones weren't our fault. The current one is. The previous ones weren't. But it's... If you ever go to the Field Museum in Chicago, there's a really great exhibit where you see all the dinosaur bones, but it walks you through all the extinction events that have happened in the history of the Earth. And then the last one it leaves you on is just like, and the current one that we're responsible for. And you're like, oh.
Happening now.
Still, my favorite thing, and I'm pretty sure I've told you this, is my favorite thing in that whole museum is there's a section where you get to like the, oh God, what are they called? The weird little spiral things. What are those spiral fossils called? Ammonites. You get to those sections, and it's like there's a video that's how to become a fossil, and it's like how fossils are formed. Step 1, die. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's unfortunate. but yeah. So anyway, yeah, who knows what's at the bottom of the ocean, man? It's terrifying. And then the fact that, like, because when you go to space, you have to do a similar thing when you come back. You have to, like, basically reacclimate to being on Earth because you've been in space, and underwater is the exact same way. As your body adapts to being at a lower pressure or at a higher pressure, and you go back to a lower pressure, like I said, you have to slowly decompress yourself. Otherwise, your body will rapidly try to readjust, and that process can literally kill you.
Yeah, I'm not. No one's ever asked me, but I would never put myself in that position. I hate being in a swimming pool. I don't like swimming. I don't like being in any body of water. So, like, much less deep sea. No thanks. I love how much this movie, like, in true sci-fi fashion, especially like Michael Crichton fashion, like, there's enough science to make it believable, even though it's not true science. I've got to imagine most of this habitat stuff is not something we could build in real life. Especially, I love like the long extension cord that they have plugged into it, and once it gets unplugged, like, oh, we're on internal power. It's like, what is that? What does that mean? But I love there's this moment where they first make it to the habitat, and they're talking like in that chamber before they enter, and they have like high pitched voices because of the helium, and they're explaining that like the air is made up of more helium than reached on the surface, so this our voices travel faster, rolls at a higher pitch. And then Captain Barnes tells them, put on the voice modulators, they're on the wall behind you. And they put these things on the throats, and the rest of the movie they just sound like the actors are expected to sound. And it's like, why is that even there? Like, I guess just to show us, like, hey, we acknowledge like that scientifically they would sound different, but don't worry, they have voice modulators on their neck to make them sound exactly like you expect these actors to sound. It's just it's a little silly, but I guess I appreciate like injecting as much real science as you can into a movie that, of course, is going to divulge into science fiction.
Yeah.
It's the classic, mosquito, like the Jurassic Park thing, mosquito sucking dinosaur blood, getting trapped in amber. Like, that sounds so plausible and makes sense, but
no. Yeah,
that can't, it's not real. Like, the DNA would not be
let alone enough times to build out the entirety of Jurassic Park. Because, like, that's the thing that, like, gets lost. Is, like, that thing happening once is, like, a 1 in a billion chance. And you need it to happen 30 times. And it's like, no. And I guess maybe the implication is that's not the only way they acquired the DNA, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, yeah. And I would say that's it's a very good call to say that like Michael Crichton is very, very good at like at making the fake science sound plausible. Yeah. And part of that is I think that like he was literally a doctor, so like he was a scientist essentially. No, he wasn't a doctor. Am I losing my mind? Yeah, so he went to med school. I don't know if he ever finished and became a doctor, but he did go to med school. So I think there was just a very big like attention to detail that comes with what he does. Like obviously he was the creator of things like ER as well too. So like obviously there was medical the medical field was something that was of great interest to him. But that is, I think, one of the best things that he does is he takes the science and makes it seem like you read it and you're just like, oh yeah, okay, makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
and then you like think about it, and you think about it for a second, and you're like, wait, no, what are you talking about? Like, no, this doesn't make sense at all. Like, how would that happen so many times? But it is it's good stuff.
One of the things that always stuck with me, something that blew my mind watching this as a kid, is the finale of this movie. Like, we know the three of them have entered it. We know the three of them have this ability, that the three of them are manifesting these things. We know that Dustin Hoffman manifested the jellyfish because he has a fear of jellyfish because of an incident that happened when he was a kid. We know that Harry, Samuel Jackson's character, is manifesting the giant squid. And then for a while, we don't know exactly what Sharon Stone's character is manifesting, if anything, but we do know that she has set these charges around the facility, and whenever she has a brief like suicidal thought, it activates the charges. So all three of them, their minds are working against them, and they are making a run for it. They're making an escape to this submarine that is programmed to go back to the surface. And they are desperately trying, the charge has been activated, they're running underwater, they're getting inside the submarine, and then they are just inside the spaceship. They're just back in the spaceship. They're back in the spacecraft. They don't know how they got there. Now they've got to desperately try to run out of the spacecraft. Remember how to make it down the hallways, try to remember where the door is. And there's just a shot of the three of them communicating to each other how to get out of here, but they are in the submarine. And it's maybe one of the first instances I can think of a movie like, for lack of a better term, like lying to you, like showing you these characters are in the physical space, but it's actually in their head. It feels different than like a character waking up from a dream. Oh, that was a dream sequence. This is like what they are experiencing currently in their mind while they're awake under this influence. I don't know how to describe it, but something about those characters, quote unquote, really being in the sub, but the movie depicting them running around the spacecraft, blew my mind as a kid. I love that it's like the finale of this movie, like the big tension, the big action finale of them like overcoming what their mind is making them think is happening. And the big moment is like Dustin Hoffman reaching forward and pushing a button because he's trying to focus on where they actually are. It's so cool, but the way it's shown to us, I'm curious, like go back and read the book and kind of see how they walk you through this moment, because to me it's presented in a way that only works on film. Like we're showing you something that's physically not happening. So I am curious how he explained that written out. But yeah, the finale just always stuck with me. Again, sort of like how we never see the giant squid. Just the ability to build tension by characters thinking they're somewhere that they aren't, I think is just a really cool concept.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way the movie handles this is very, very well done. And like that notion of like, well, who's doing this? Because they know one of them has to be doing it. Because because that's the interesting thing to me about this movie as it unfolds, is just this idea that like the sphere doesn't seem to actually be doing any of this. The sphere has given them the ability to do it. Now, like you said, you kind of imply like, did the sphere call out to Samuel L. Jackson? Like, did it encourage him to come in and do this? But ultimately, the movie largely unfolds with the notion and expectation that they are doing this, not the sphere.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was very interesting, because it would have been really easy to just have the sphere be this like monolith type thing that was, exuding its negative influence over everyone. And I mean, I guess it did in a way. It gave everybody these powers that they didn't know how to handle or do anything with. But, that's what he gets for trusting us, I guess. But it's just an interesting thing, because like I said, in a lot of other scenarios, it would very much be like the sphere has a diabolical motivation, or the ship is haunted. No spoilers. But it's handled really interestingly by making it be the fault of the characters, essentially, and just the way this all comes together. Now, I will say, in the book, they go into the sphere and you see what's in the sphere. The movie avoids that whole thing. Now, I know part of the reason that Levinson ended up leaving production early on was because budget concerns, and that led to script rewrites. And so that might be like why we don't see the giant squid. That might be why we don't go inside the sphere. Because originally, Dustin Hoffman's character in the book, he goes into the sphere like last, and it's like during the finale. Like he goes into the sphere because everybody else has, basically, and he's just trying to figure out what's going on, essentially. And basically, he finds out that everybody else has been into the sphere and then goes into the sphere. And then he sees the inside of the sphere. And then it goes from there. And it ends in a very similar way. But
he goes inside and he sees like a really crappy AI version of the Wizard of Oz being projected all around him. And he's like, this is terrible. We gotta get out of here.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But like I said, in the book, he meets what's in there, and it is an alien, essentially. Well, they are an alien, I guess. But,
because they're playing the Wizard of Oz at the Las Vegas Sphere. Is that clear? Did that joke land? Did everyone get that? No? Okay. All right.
No. I have no idea what you were talking about.
I appreciate you politely nodding along, but you can, the Las Vegas Sphere. They're
the
showing
Wizard of Oz thing, yeah.
The Wizard of Oz, which you have to extend a movie shot in whatever 1930, whatever, to 50 feet across. So there's like an AI sky added to the movie, and literally like digital characters because they have to extend the scenes, and it's just like you put so much money into this.
Horrible.
This is the worst way to see this movie. What are we doing?
Yeah. Why would you want this? But
yeah.
Anyway, finale is very cool. Like I said, the way they kind of increase that sense of tension and almost madness by having them switch to locations, think they can't get out, and then again, but just that notion that it's them doing this, it's not the sphere doing this. That was just very interesting to me. We'll get into much more malevolent forces, but in this case, the sphere is like true neutral. Like, it's like, I gave you the power to do this, and it's not my fault you guys don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
I'm never one to be like, the critics got it wrong. That's not our style here, Andrew. And the critics' consensus is what it is, and it's okay to disagree with them. I just want to say I have a hard time really putting my finger on why the reception of this movie is so negative. Like this, I'm not shocked at a 40%, at a 50%, at a. Did you just get the picture I sent you of the screenshot from Wizard of Oz with like the Windows 2000 background just thrown in behind the shot? It's terrible.
Horrid.
So I don't know exactly what it is that so did not connect with people about this movie. Because kind of even like the Rotten Tomatoes consensus and I read some of the reviews is like, this is typical sci-fi stuff that's been done better in other movies. And like, I don't know, maybe in the sense that this isn't the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, sure. But I think, to me, there's certainly enough original stuff in this movie to make it stand on its own. I don't know. I couldn't really get my finger on the pulse of like, what, I can't really point to any one or two things that are like, dragging this movie down so much for critics. I've always loved it. There is some nostalgia at play here. Like I said, even rewatching it now, I rewatched it with a friend of the show, my wife. Our daughter watched it with us. She was into it. We got all got to talk about it afterwards and how cool it was. I don't know. All I can say is it works for me, and I think it's a hell of a time.
All that matters, my dude.
I guess what I was ramping up to, I had this line I made a note of from Harry, from Samuel Jackson's character. It's the most sci-fi theme line. It's like this movie's version of you were so concerned whether or not you could, stop to think of that you should. It's before they go into the spacecraft, they're trying to figure out a way in. And he says, has it occurred to anyone that maybe we shouldn't open that door? And that question kind of just lingers in the air, and then they move forward anyway. The hubris of man. Some things we shouldn't mess with, shouldn't deal with. And that's ultimately the finale of this movie. They all decide collectively humanity is not ready for this. We, the people in this room who have this ability, cannot handle it. Our fears will take over. It will lead to destruction. We're not ready for this. And that was kind of the paradox presented by Harry. The reason he said we're all going to die down here is because on the spacecraft, the unknown event of them going into the black hole resulted in the spacecraft being there and them discovering it. But if they are now discovering it, then in the future they should have knowledge of the event, but they don't, which must mean, by deductive reasoning, we don't live. But instead, it's not that they don't live, it's that they all collectively decide to forget. They use the power of manifestation to focus on forgetting that they have the power. Therefore, they don't have the power, and they don't remember getting it. Super cool, super sci-fi. I think it's a nice little bow to put on the movie. And like I said, it doesn't resolve everything. There's still plenty of mystery and weird stuff, but it really speaks to like my level of ambiguity in the film, because we talked about if things are too ambiguous to the point where I feel like there's really no point, I have a hard time grabbing on. This has like the right mix of like weird sci-fi beyond our comprehension and telling a fun, exciting story about humanity and our faults. Just classic sci-fi stuff. So I don't know, maybe that's the difference. Critics think it's passe sci-fi, but I think it's simply another example of some great classic sci-fi tropes and themes.
Yeah, just because they're tropes and classic things for a reason. And I think as long as the movie is using those things effectively and well, there's nothing wrong with that. I've watched plenty of movies where I get through that. I'm like, it wasn't reinventing the wheel, but it was doing that simple thing it was doing extremely well. And that makes it memorable. to me. And so it's like, I don't need everything to, break the mold and find some new path forward. And so sometimes if you just do something well, it'll work. And I think this movie fits firmly into that space.
Man, that was a great movie to revisit. Classic in my mind. I still quite enjoy it. I enjoy this theme. I gotta say, sci-fi horror. It's such a fun genre. Especially, like I said, this is sort of an incidental 90s month, and 90s are my jam. I love this era of filmmaking. This has been quite a joy, and we have more fun movies coming up this month. But before we get any further, Andrew, you know what time it is. It's time that we enter the sphere that is AA. Ask Andrew, the part of the show where I ask you a question, you have to answer it. That is your contractual obligation. And this week, I have a rather simple question for you, Andrew. Inspired by the movie we just watched. I'm sure you're familiar with the classic adage that the book is always better than the movie. Right? Oh, that movie sucked, but the book was really good. Oh, they butchered the book. Oh, the adaptation was terrible. The book is so much better. I think that my favorite way I've heard that expressed is never judge a book by its movie. Nice little clever spin on a phrase there. But I want to examine that phrase a little bit here, Andrew, and ask you, in general, do you agree with the idea that the book is always better?
No.
Okay. Pretty hard and fast no. Do you think... So where do you fall? Do you think, like, movies are a different medium to tell the story? It's apples and oranges? Or do you think that most film adaptations are actually quite good? People get it wrong?
I think there are more... I think this rests in a couple of different places. I think one is there are movies people don't realize are adaptations. And can get lost in the shuffle. Like, take something like Jaws. Lots of people don't even know Jaws is a book. They have no idea. And here's my hot take. Jaws by Peter Benchley sucks. It's not good.
The book sucks, is what you're saying.
The book.
Okay.
Yes, by Peter Benchley. Not Steven Spielberg. But Jaws is one of the first summer blockbuster, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a monumental film. Everybody knows Jaws, and everybody knows that it's one of the greatest films of all time. Almost nobody knows that it's based off a book, and even fewer people know that book is not particularly good. You take something like Die Hard. Die Hard is technically based off a book. No one knows that. You take a movie like, even stuff where you get into like things like Stand By Me and like things like that. I don't know that people necessarily know those are Stephen King books. Like Drive, the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling is based off a book. So I guess that's my first point, is that when people say the book is always better, they're largely pointing to like high profile versions of that, like the Harry Potters or the Lord of the Rings or the big ticket book stuff. The books, the books that like bestsellers, everybody knows them. They're like, well, the movie adaptations of those are never going to give up the book. But there's a lot of examples of books that are just not better than the movies they're based on. You take something like Psycho by Robert Bloch. That movie is infinitely better than the book. You take even Doctor Strangelove, The Godfather. I've heard people say the Godfather movie takes Mario Puzo's book and makes it better.
And I think there's also, to use an example from earlier in the episode, Jurassic Park is an all-time great action movie, and maybe you're not going to say the movie's better than the book, but it'd be
pretty different.
Equally ridiculous to say the book is better than the movie, in my opinion.
I would, yes. I would agree with that completely. Take something like The Thing. Like, The Thing is based off of, who goes there, but like, no one knows who goes there. So for me, it's a misnomer to say the book is always better. Because one, you don't know the things that are adaptations. Two, only a Sith deals in absolutes. And three, there's just too many examples of the book being of movies that are better than the book they're based off of. Now, and then there's some that are like dice rolls. You take something like No Country for Old Men. I mean, that movie is considered one of the best movies of the millennium, and the book is also considered one of the best books of Cormac McCarthy's career. And so you end up in situations like that where you've got a very acclaimed movie and a very acclaimed book. And it's like, well, that's probably going to be a push for most people, if and the other thing that's just simply true is that there are people who just the visual medium speaks to them on a higher level. And so being able to see it visualized for them versus kind of the process of reading and visualizing it, it means it's going to hit for them in a different way, just as there are people who are the inverse. There are people who see the world in their head with no question, and when they watch the movie, you get into that thing where they're like, oh, well, this doesn't match the version of this I had in my head, which is not the same thing as being bad. But it's a tough thing, but there are definitely books that are not as good as the movies they are based off that came from them, like Children of Men, Full Metal Jacket, even Clockwork Orange. I don't know if I said Clockwork Orange yet. Anthony Burgess wrote that. I have a love-hate relationship with Clockwork Orange anyway. I'm not particularly a big fan of it, so I'm not really going to argue hard either way for that. But in my mind, there are too many adaptations that are good, if not better. And I'm saying, is it a trend where they're like mostly better? Oh, and I didn't call out the most famous instance of the movie being better than the book. Probably Forrest Gump, which is an absolutely absurd book. It's the kind of book where I'm like, it's actually kind of interesting to me because, like, if you read the Forrest Gump book, you would not really know why it was adapted into the way that it was, because it changes a lot of fundamental things about it. There's also a sequel that's absolutely insane, where, like, Forrest is in the back of OJ's Bronco during the chase. It's nuts. It's absolutely insane.
I mean, that's the whole. From what I understand, that the author hated what they did to his adaptation, so he wrote the sequel specifically as like a. I don't know if attack on the movie is the right way, but like it was a rejection of like the reception of the movie. So yeah, that's a whole tangled thing. Yeah, I think
another example people point to of the movie being better than the book. But like, so for me, I mean, if you could even find like one great example of the movie being better than the book, I think it pokes a hole in that argument. But I think there's several instances where you've got a movie that's better than the book, to the point that to universally say the book is always better is nonsense. Also, if the book is always better, stay home.
Stop trying. Stop watching.
Just like if you're gonna live by the end, I guess it doesn't mean it doesn't mean the adaptation's bad. It just means the book's better. Just stay at home. Let me watch it. Let me watch it in peace. It's gonna be fine.
I think there's something to be said where when you read a book, no matter how good the author is, how descriptive, you are filling in gaps and creating your own visuals in your brain. We all do that part differently, but sure. You are bringing something to that story. Two people can read the exact same words, and the quote-unquote movie in their head is going to look totally different. And you yourself are filling in those gaps, so you have this like personal connection to it, and it's sort of tailored to your taste in a way. And then you go see the movie adaptation, all those decisions are made for you. This is definitively what this looks like. And I think there's sort of innate pushback to be like, well, no, that's not what I got from the book. That's sort of gonna lean into this notion that well, the book is better. That plus, generally speaking, novels are going to have more story, cover more ground, have more time than you can do in a 90 to 2 hour feature. So things get condensed. So it isn't necessarily bad, but there's more story in the book that takes you 8 hours to read or whatever. So I think those things kind of lead to the reputation. But I think I'm going to agree with you that there are certainly enough examples to counter the argument that that's not, it can't really be seen as like a rule. There's certainly examples. I have not read the Dark Tower books nor seen the Matthew McConaughey movie, but from what I understand, the books are better than the movie in that regard. So there are examples, but there's certainly, as you were able to rattle off, enough examples of movies being great but different, flat out better, that it's hard to say flat out that the book is always better. I think I'm gonna agree with you on this one, Andrew.
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, the and you know, there was probably a time where I may have like argued more, you know, but like and you just touched to the heart of it though. It's two different mediums, and stories work differently in those mediums. And there are books they say are unadaptable, books that can never be adapted. Cloud Atlas,
Yeah.
good example of a book that people were like, oh, you could never adapt this, and somebody did. And it's got its
Great.
It's got its defenders. One of which is on this podcast. But
You like that movie? You enjoyed it.
I don't like it as much as you do.
Okay, well,
but,
like is like, Andrew.
It is, I suppose. But I would be, yeah. Anyway, but it's, you know, and then there are books that just like, you know, and there are books that I think the story it tells, because, you know, when you're speaking, like when you have a book that's like mostly monologuing or like an inner monologue, it's tough to adapt that to a visual medium, because how do you adapt a story that's basically just a guy thinking the whole time? And it's like, well, that's not particularly visually arresting or visually striking. So you have to find a way around it and kind of find a way to make it better. And that's not always easy. And so there are definitely book adaptations that don't land because they're trying something too lofty. There are definitely books that get turned into better movies because sometimes that story works better as a visual media. And not necessarily better as a relative term, but like you take something like Jaws, you can make that a very visually arresting narrative where there's a lot of tension that you can wring out of that by the way you approach it. And it's been, yeah, it's just too much of everything flying the other way for me to give any kind of, nothing in life is objective, folks.
Do you have plenty of examples of a movie being better than the book? Or are you a defender and you hold to the rule that the book is always better? I want to hear your examples. Let us know in our Discord server. There's a link in the show notes if you have not joined us already. Come on, what are you waiting for? Come and join the conversation. Keep it going. Come back next week as Sci-Fi Horror Month continues. What are we watching next week, Andrew?
Deep Rising.
And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Blue Sky, and you can check our show notes for his SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Check 1, 2.
Hello. Welcome to our month dedicated to three-dimensional shapes. First up is the movie Sphere. Following this is the movie Cube, which I am hoping is a movie. It is indeed. It is a 1997 horror sci-fi.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah. Cube, 1997 film.
The year before this, there was a movie in the same genre based on a different three-dimensional shape.
Yeah,
that is funny.
I don't know.
There's got to be a pyramid movie.
There's definitely a pyramid movie. Pyramid movie. No, I don't know that I've seen a movie called Pyramid.
I mean, the movie's
there's-
featuring
oh, that-
pyramids. I don't know how
The Pyramid, a 2014 American found footage supernatural horror film.
perfect.
The Pyramid. So we've got Sphere, Cube, the Pyramid, and I don't know. Is there a movie called Cylinder? I searched Cylinder movie, and the first hit is Felix the Cat, the movie. What?
Interesting.
Very odd. Anyway, that's not.
What if we
that's
just
not the
do more
purpose of
than
the
one
show.
cube? There's a movie called The Box, science fiction thriller about a box.
Yeah, three-dimensional shapes is kind of limiting. Dimensional shape. Cube. Is there a movie called Rhombus? Rhombus is 2D. It's not 3D. Shame.
Rectangular prism.
Cone? We did Conehead. There's a short film called The Cone. Anyway, I don't know why I'm following this path down. I don't need to.